Hello everyone, my name is Clubfest. Welcome back to, another video. It's been a long time. Uh, I'm not going to get into anything about that. But right now, it's time to do another mod showcase, shall we? So, mod showcase, what I'm going to be doing today, if Tyler hasn't picked up already, is Astral Sorcery. This is a 1.12 and a soon-to-be 1.15 mod that focuses on using the power of the stars to help make your character become more powerful, basically. So, when you first spawn in, you're going to get this thing called the Astral Tome. This is basically your key to starting out in this whole mod. At the very least, knowing how to double do it. So to navigate, this isn't your normal run-of-the-mill knowledge book that you find with most other mods. This one you can actually drag around in order to actually see what's going on. You can either use your mouse wheel to scroll in, or you can just double-click, make it a little bit faster. Now, when you first start off, you're only going to have the Discovery chapter, the first one here. And with this, you can basically see the very bare basics of how Astral works. You have the Resonating Wand, which is your main thing that you're going to need to know about how to get. And you're going to be using this pretty much everything in Astral. It has some data about ancient shrines, constellation papers, and so on and so forth. You can click on them to read through them, and they have the basic knowledge about everything, but I'm just going to go ahead and give you a quick rundown. Actually, with now being night, you can actually see one of the main things of this act is all these twinkling stars. And as you progress in the mod, you will actually be able to also see different constellations. Actually, quick disclaimer, one of the mods that I'm currently running right now is called Astral Sorcery, which basically changes the types of constellations, the designs of the constellations in this mod. If you get only Astral Sorcery, the designs will be different, but the mechanics will still basically be the same. So don't worry about that part. Also, the little spark thing that's following me, that is something that I have for being a perk, for being a patron on Hellfire PvP's Patreon. I'll have a link to that in the description as well. So, yeah. So one of the first things you're going to want to do, besides look through your tome, is you're going to want to find a Astral Shrine, which is one of these giant things. You can typically find them either in the mountains or snowy biomes, and they will have sea lanterns and a bunch of marble all around. And for those wondering, this glow that these are emitting, it's a separate mod called Colored Lux. Think of it as a shaders of sorts without optifying. Anyways, the reason you want to find these kinds of things is because if you dig within them, down here, you will find a floating crystal. This is pretty much where you can really start getting into the mod, because without one of these, you're going to be kind of lost. The other thing that you can find, because I actually put it together in this, here, are these little temples, these fountains. Under one of the pillars there is actually a chest that you can find, which can have some goodies like a diamond, some iron, some gold, glowstone, or constellation papers. You probably heard me already say constellation papers a couple of times, but these things basically here, they will start off blank, but once you grab it and put it in your inventory, it will suddenly turn into one of the different constellations of the mod. This one is Capricornus, which, if I remember right, is the Armara, I think? Basically, it's each constellation will have different kinds of perks with it, and I'll get into that later on. The nice thing also is that we don't clog up your inventory with these. Shift by clicking the tome will allow you to store the papers inside of the tome. Don't toss it out. Yeah. And once you actually start getting constellations as well, you will unlock the Constellations tab over here. This will allow you to go through and view the different constellations you know. So, I guess now the time is to just figure out how the devil to actually get started in this. Well, if you look through your book, right here for the Resonating Wand, you see that this little star thing here? That basically means that this is starlight that is needed. Each crafting recipe in this mod requires different amounts of starlight. And I'm gonna go and shut up this water because this is getting annoying. It's better. Oh yeah, right, that fountain up top. Thing. There we go. Anyways, so what you need to do is you need to take a vanilla crafting table, not T-construct things or whatever. It has to be a typical vanilla crafting table, otherwise it decides to not work. Place it down next to the crystal, and you'll see there's a little light shining from the crystal to the table. That means you can actually you can actually make the Resonating Wand. A couple of aquamarine, a couple of pieces of marble, and ender pearl. So let's see. Green, ender pearl, and marble. That'll work. Just put these here. Bada bing, bada boom, you have yourself a Resonating Wand. Now, besides being able to actually use it for crafting, this also serves a purpose to find rock crystals, which are another very important item that you're going to need to find in this mod. They are actually hard to find by themselves. Oh, hey, look, you can actually see one of the fountains over there. Yeah, anyways, when you're holding the wand in your hand, either in main or offhand, and it's nighttime, it only works during nighttime, you'll sometimes see these pillars of smoke. If you dig down, all the way down here, oh, mineshaft. You actually see the sparkles down here as well. And yep, right here. It is the rock crystal ore. Mining this with a diamond level pickaxe, aka you can mine obsidian at least. You can actually mine this up and get rock crystals. Now, the rock crystals actually tend to be okay. Okay, looks like I went a little bit out of order here. My bad, guys. I guess before you even going after rock crystals, one more thing you need to do while you're still here at the shrine with your table is you need to make the luminous crafting table. Basically what this is it's similar to the normal crafting table being next to the crystal. However, you can place it wherever you want as long as it's up in the open sky. So let's see here. Let's do marble. So normal marble. And another crafting table will get you the luminous crafting table. And as you can see in my chat, I have unlocked the next chapter, exploration. The best way you have to progress in this mod is you just upgrade your crafting table. There's no thinking about specific things. It's just upgrade the table, you upgrade how much you know about in the mod. So as you can see now, I have the second chapter exploration available. And here it gives you more information about some of the different items here in the mod. Crystal tools, grindstone, powders, and so on. So now, if we head back to the crystal ore, I get myself a diamond pick. Oh dang, there was 2 here. Wow, that's really rare. Anything else? What does it? Yeah, normally you only get to see 1 crystal ore every time you find one of these things. But apparently, this one decided to spawn a double vein, which is nice. Right. So whenever you mine a crystal ore, you can see that they're not actually stacking. That's because each one actually has properties on it. Holding shift will give you a size, purity, and cutting. Each of these can affect, well, how the crystal can function in certain recipes. Some recipes, it doesn't matter what they are. Others, it does really matter how well these are put together. And I'll try and differentiate them to the best of my ability. So, first thing you're going to want to do with one of these is you're going to want to make a light well. Now, honestly, what I would highly recommend, because the cutting and the size you can actually manipulate later down the line on the crystals, but the purity you cannot. Whatever the purity is, it's basically stuck like that. So for recipes that don't really matter, like the light well, find whichever one is the lower purity and use that. Now remember when I said that this thing indicates that a recipe in Astral requires starlight? Well, placing down the table, here for instance, will give you the crafting grid and a bar underneath it. This bar is your starlight. Different areas of the world will have different amounts of starlight, but typically the higher up you go, the more starlight you will be able to have. So what I would honestly recommend is, at least at first, try and find a mountaintop or build a giant tower up or something like that to get as high up as possible to get as much of the as much starlight as you possibly can, because it's going to come in handy. Like if I go up here, I'm pretty sure that's at least a little bit higher. No, so you're not going to be able to get a lot of starlight usually during the day. Since it's starlight, it works the best at night. Let's see here. Let's get this to night. There we go. Yep, that works. So you can see here, I've got a full bar now, so I can do whatever I need to with this. So the light well, this thing is really handy because in order to upgrade your table again, you need a bucket of liquid starlight, which you can get either with aquamarine, which either placing aquamarine or rock crystals in here. I would honestly recommend using aquamarine if you have enough to spare, because it's usually everywhere, and these are not as everywhere. But aquamarine you can usually find just lying around in rivers and oceans. Like right here. This is aquamarine ore. You just mine that up and you can get a few pieces of aquamarine. Yeah, I use it. But yeah, this also actually has to have an open view to the sky, otherwise it will not work. So let's see here, aquamarine. So you just plop in a piece of aquamarine, and there you go. It is starting to fill up with liquid starlight. That's what this stuff down there is. Now, what liquid starlight basically is, it's a power source of sorts for certain parts of this mod, but it's also used, as you can see, in some recipes, and if you step in it, starlight. You can see it glows the area, and if you step in it, you get night vision for a few seconds, which can come in handy sometimes. So, this is the other thing. Again, things like upgrading the crafting altar or light wells and stuff, these, it doesn't usually matter what the stats are on crystal. So as I said, just use the lowest purity one you've got. So like this one, smart pillars, chisel marble. Let's see here. What is it? This. So just doing this, and whenever you're done with the recipe, just right click with your wand and that'll activate it. Now, actually keep in mind, whenever you're upgrading your table, you can only do it at night. It doesn't like you're doing it in the middle of the day or whatever. You can only do these at night. And there we go. Next chapter's unlocked, attunement. Now here's the other thing actually that I didn't go over in exploration yet. You might have noticed, but there's a thing called the looking glass. Basically a telescope. Early on in the game, you're going to need to make some panes and surround it with a piece of aquamarine. And you're going to want to actually make a looking glass. Oh, yeah, whenever it's done, it makes a glass breaking noise. So don't get startled. Also, other thing, the light well can only hold 2 buckets of whatever liquid is in there. And once it's filled up, it's not going to go anywhere. Really? So what I would recommend you do is find a mod that has some sort of tank and have a let's see, what was it called? Here we go. Gonna need some sort of way to get the liquid out and throw it in a tank of sorts. And you can only access the liquid from the bottom of this. None of the other sides will work. So keep that in mind. So, anyways. So now you've upgraded your crafting table. No, sorry. I keep losing track of where I'm going. So we need the looking glass, right? Right. So, the looking glass, it's not going to let you actually zoom in on anything, but it will let you look into the sky. Though, with it being day, there's not much I can do. There we go. Oh, too far. Okay, maybe negative? Okay, fine, whatever. Anyway, so when it's nighttime, you can look around with the telescope, and you can see. You'll usually be able to see a set of stars that aren't moving. So you hold shift, and you can start drawing the constellations. And once you do, That's I screwed up. One sec. You have to get it right, otherwise it will not show up correctly. Oh yeah. There we go. Gemini. So if I look back at my book now on the constellations, you can actually see more of a description of what it does and what phases of the moon it will show up under. And later on, it will give you more info about what you can do with that constellation. So, now that we've covered that, let's go ahead and move on to the next chapter, Attunement. Attunement is where things can really start getting interesting for the mod. This is where you can start getting teleportation pads. You can actually attune yourself to a constellation, and you can, well, you can also attune crystals and more. As this is where stuff starts getting really interesting. It's also why you still need to keep an eye on where a temple of yours is, because you're still going to need that crystal. Now, the other thing you might notice when you first reopen your crafting altar is that the starlight bar is now red. Unfortunately, after the first level of the crafting altar, you're going to need to actually make a multi-block structure. And this is actually found in the table upgrade. Just like over here, it's a 9x4x9 area, and you can just drag it around like this and see the layers. And if you hover over the star, you can see exactly how much material you need in order to make a structure. With this, and again, this always needs a structure that you have to stop wherever you are. Now, honestly, I would actually recommend, even though it says 9x4x9s, if you look in the attunement for its crafting upgrade, it goes to up to 11x5x11. So I'd recommend you actually clear out an 11x11 area for your altar, just so that way you can go ahead and have it ready for when you're upgrading to the next level. So, now that you've got this, as you can see now, I can actually start crafting with it again. Plop all these up there. So, one of the next things you're going to want to get is the linking tool. This requires another rock crystal, some more aquamarine, some sticks, and so on. And this is what you can use to actually use the crystal properly over there. Let's go ahead and head back over. And drop on in. Now at this point, unfortunately, you're going to want to have to pop open that hole into the altar, because at this point now, the crystal actually needs starlight, and actual starlight from the sky to function. This causing the weird colors. Okay, I have no idea why it's starting to go crazy with colors. I guess Color Blux is freaking out on it or something. Anyways, so with this, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get some iron, the actual ore, not just the ingots, and place them down like right here. Take your linking tool and right click on this, and then you can click each of these. Okay, one second. Sorry. Okay, so apparently it just didn't like how far I put it. But anyways, you have to keep the linking tool in your hand, because once you take it out, as you can see, it stops linking everything. So let's see. Let's go ahead and make this night again to try this out. Yep, there we go. So basically what happens is whenever you link up the crystal to some iron ore, you will then get this star metal ore. This is very useful, so I would recommend getting a lot of this as soon as you can, because this will come in handy quite a bit. And thankfully, soon after you get this, you actually, in the next chapter, you can actually make your own collector crystal. So you don't have to keep worrying about finding that all the time. So, back over here, let's see. Oh, yeah, we got quite a bit. That should be enough to be able to upgrade us. Because basically, in order to upgrade, you need the star metal and star dust. So the way you, in order to get that, you basically need to either use the grindstone from Astral, or use another crusher or grinder, what have you, in a different mod, in order to grind up the star metal or the star metal itself. However, if you look at this here, no, not that, this, here, you have a chance to actually double the output of the star dust. So if you have some to spare and you just need a couple of dust, this is not a bad idea to use. So you just right click something on there that is able to be ground, and just hold right click, and then it'll grind itself up. Shift right clicking will bring it back out, and hey, you got double star dust. Nice. So let's see, star metal ingots, crystal. Which is horrible. Oh, that was nice. Couple. And there we go. And as you can see here, the visuals got a little bit more of an upgrade with connection to the pillars and some light shining across the ground. This is honestly one of the nice things about Astral. It's just, it's so visually appealing with all of this. And just give it a second. Come on. The other thing is, as I said, you're going to want to have to prep up an 11 by 11 area for this whole thing. So, there we go. Next chapter, Constellation. So this, as I said, this is where you can actually start looking at getting collector crystals of your own, so you don't have to keep running back there all the time. However, if you want to be able to make these, you're going to have to get something that I kind of skipped over in attunement. That's the actual attunement altar and stuff. And honestly, this is also actually where you can start getting really overpowered. You make it like so. It's similar to the table. It can only be performed by nighttime, it looks like. And you're going to need a huge area for this. A 19 by 19 area. It's pretty big. Thankfully, it doesn't matter what height you build it at, as long as it fills in that area. So, I'm going to go build that real quick and upgrade the altar, and be back in a moment. So, yeah. Alright, and I'm back, guys. So that took a little bit. Whenever you're building the attunement altar, just a heads up, really try and keep your math right, because I tend to screw this up a lot. And I screwed it up still when I was rebuilding this. Right, anyways. So, as you can see here, this is the attunement altar, which is much bigger than the crafting altar is. And the reason for that is because whenever you try to attune something, you are basically going to have to draw the constellation. Again, this is where the disclaimer comes in. The shapes will be slightly different, but the mechanic is still the same. So again, just keep that in mind with this, if you get just the base mod. So let's see here. Gemini is the main one that we've had so far. So what I recommend you do, honestly, let's just get this to the dead of the night. The other thing, actually, as you can see, you can actually see the constellations show up in the sky as you discover them. So it's also just a nice little touch on that end. So basically, whenever you're holding a constellation paper in your hand, and you know what's going on, you can actually see a hint of everything with all of these little lights. So what you need to do with these lights is you need to get a thing called what's it called again? Sorry. Let's see here. Spectral relays. That's what it is. Which I made like this. Nothing too crazy. But you're gonna want a bunch of these, especially if you play with the Astral Sorcery Mod, since those add a lot more points onto the constellations. So anyways, you place these down where these are, and if the constellation's out, everything will start working. You'll see a lighting of the constellation, and the bars up here will start floating. So one of the big things you can actually do, stupid weather, and one of the big things you can actually do with this is you can take a rock crystal. So let's see, this one, just toss it in. There we go. And if you give it a moment, ignore the wool sounds. That's another mod I have installed in this whole thing. Anyways, give it a moment. You can see all the particles flying towards it, and bada bing, bada boom, you now have an attuned crystal. With this one being attuned to Gemini, which I think is Visio in the typical AS mod. That's not all you can do. Remember how I said that this is where you can start getting powers and everything? This is how you do it. And honestly, whenever you actually do this, I recommend doing Visio / Gemini, whichever one is this motion constellation. This is honestly the easiest one to start with. So all you do is just step in. If you have multi-layered skin like mine, it's gonna go down to the bottom layer, but yeah, you just step on here, and after a moment, with this crazy animation of this, it takes a bit longer than tuning a crystal, but trust me, it's worth it in the end. And there we go. Oh, and a little flare decided to show up. Now, these little guys just pop up every once in a while. They don't really do anything other than just hang around and disappear. Anyways, now if you look back in here, you can now see another tab called Perks. And this is where the fun truly starts to begin. So as I said, Gemini, or the motion constellation, is the easiest one to actually start with. Because the easiest way to gain experience, that little bar you saw up there, is literally just by running around. That's it. Just running around a little bit, and there we go. Already level 2. Just run another lap, and I bet I can get to level 3 right about now. See? Really easy. And the more levels you get, the more points you will be able to spend. At first, it's just a bit of extra speed or defense or what have you, depending on which constellation you are attuned to. And then there's the major perks, like this one. And let's see, how many of these can you actually see? Looks like quite a bit. Okay, so when you start going down this path, your typical looking glass is not going to serve you much more, since you can actually only see one constellation every night with this. So what you're going to do is upgrade it to a telescope. Just like so. Nothing too crazy. And this will allow you to view the original ones, like which one's that one? Right. Well, anyways, you look through here and you do the typical thing, except you don't have to hold shift this time. This one's just eight. No, wait, no. It's not it. Let's see. This one out. Yeah, it's about morning anyways. But you can use the arrows to move the telescope around and find the shapes and just make them again. By doing that, you can unlock more of the routes in your perks. It's like here, it's more mining. This one, if I remember right, is Capricornus, or the shielding one. So this one's more for the defense. This one is offense, this one's mining, and this one is for health. Each of the different branches can grant you different abilities, and by default, the maximum level and the maximum number of perks, therefore, is 30. However, the mod author Hellfire has actually changed it to 40 in the 115 ones, if I remember right. At least I think that's what he's planning, or something like that. So you can go to the config file and change it to 40 if you so choose. Again, though, the 30 is just the default for 112. And so, as I said, you can basically just keep using your perks to points to level up your characters. And I'd recommend you actually just try and plan out which ones you want to try and go for. For me, one of the ones I would try to go for would actually be this one, the Phoenix Blessing. This actually come in really good handy, especially if you tend to like run into walls and stuff a lot. Because if you take a fatal amount of damage in a long enough amount of time, you can actually be saved and be reborn, so to speak. You get a second chance to get out of any danger, even. If you don't like having different tools, this different angles one will allow your pickaxe to become an axe and a shovel as well for most materials. Not all modded blocks will react the same way, unfortunately. One of the ones I like to go for, honestly, a lot is the lightning arc. Now, if you have a very small animal pen, you might want to actually avoid this one. But if you have to deal with a lot of mobs on a regular basis, and they tend to be clustered together, this whole thing can really come in handy. Because basically what this does is it will sometimes spawn a bit of lightning, quote unquote, between enemies and damage them repeatedly. And as I said, you can look through this whole thing, try and plan out where you want to go for everything. And the other thing is, if you want, let's say you're over here and you want to get something that's on the other side. One of the ways you can get to it is either by going all the way around, or you can build your way down to here, the singularity. Though it looks like it's locked still, so I bet you have to actually unlock all the other constellations, but I'm not going to get to that in this whole thing. Anyways, once you have everything unlocked over here, you can get to here, which is a singularity. It'll give you 2 extra points and allow you to get to any of the other routes, no matter if you have any connections to them or not. So, back over to here, I suppose, now. So with the constellation thing, one of the things you can actually do now is create celestial crystals. This is also where the liquid starlight can come in handy. So these rock crystals, there are different ways that you can manipulate how they are put together. For the size, if you just toss it into some liquid starlight, it will actually increase its size by consuming the block of liquid starlight. The cutting, you slap it onto a grindstone and start cutting it. Though it will reduce the size, so be careful on that. However, if you get some stardust and plop it in the same thing as that, as it decides to start misbehaving because of the physics mod it got. Come on. There we go. Gotta toss it in a little bit harder. Give it a few seconds. Come on. There we go. It will form into this, the celestial crystal cluster. So, when you first get this, you're going to want to leave it alone and just let it grow. It's going to take a while for your first 1 or 2. However, I would really recommend you go for this, especially for your collector crystal, to try and find good purity and everything. Because if you set this up correctly for your collector crystal, you can use your crafting altar whenever you please, whether it be the middle of the day or the middle of the night. It will always be full if you set it up correctly with this enhanced collector crystal thing. Now, as you can see here, the collector crystal in here is blue, and that's because the collector crystal that you can make can be made either with a typical attuned rock crystal or an attuned celestial crystal. You attune these celestial ones similar to how you attune the rock crystals, as you saw earlier. You just tossed onto the attunement altar. So once you do that, you can put it in this here in replacement of this in order to get the collector crystal. The big difference is that the celestial collector crystals actually are much stronger than the typical collector crystals, because they have a larger size and purity ability, or not purity, but they have a larger size and Well, they're just more powerful. Just trust me on that part. So, get one of those, and you will be pretty much set forever with this. Now, the other thing you're going to want to make is the Starlight Infuser. This thing, after making this structure, will basically allow you to infuse different materials. You can look in like JEI and stuff, but the main thing you're going to want to make it for is for these resonating gems, which you basically get by plopping on the aquamarine onto this thing and right-clicking it with your resonating bond. Now, these resonating gems, besides being used for this, as well as being a celestial crystal in here, it has to be celestial. It can't be a normal rock crystal. The resonating gems can typically last a lot longer than aquamarine. So if you have the liquid starlight spare, and you have some aquamarine lying around, just infuse it and plop it in here. This will make you a lot more liquid starlight. And trust me, it can come in handy. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and just get separated, shall we? Glass lens. Celestial crystal. Marble. CD marble. And jazz. And not being nighttime. There we go. Oh yeah, this is something that you can actually notice. This light blue here, it means that there's not enough starlight. So you're gonna have to either move somewhere else, or if you're somewhere like here and you don't want to have to move this whole thing, there's another thing you can do. Back in the first chapter, the second chapter, sorry, the spectral relays, you can actually use this to make a small booster of sorts for the crafting altar. This is very useful if you don't have a collector crystal set up yet for this whole thing. So let's see here. For these, that, and that. And then you actually need a glass lens as well to place in there. Oh, it's arch, not. My bad. There we go. If you place it nearby, basically it will start sparkling and you will get some extra starlight. Well, while this might be enough for a typical crafting, maybe even for the crystal, well, if you were lucky, can't tell. Alright, let's see here. Nope, let's see here. Gemini. So look. This is the other thing. So you take your linking tool and up to there. I'll need a clear line of sight also. And there we go. Let's clear up all the snow. And as you can see, more crazy visuals happening. And there we go. this is the final chapter that you can actually unlock, Radiance. And this is where you can finally finish everything off, pretty much. From here, you can make mantles of the stars, which can grant you different kinds of effects when you wear them. Like the Gemini one, for example, which would be, again, this year if I remember correctly, in normal Astral. It basically acts like an elytra. But unlike an elytra, this thing doesn't actually take durability whenever you're flying. It'll take durability while you are taking damage, but not while you're flying. Plus, it gives a bit of armor, so it's a lot better than a normal elytra, honestly. The other thing, when you might actually look in here, besides having to upgrade this again, right? Let's see here. What is it? It's just a bit of brick. This one of these is nice and easy. Just get a bit of brick. No. There we go. The other thing you can actually see is a little celestial crystal floating above this when you finish crafting the altar together. And as you can see in here, you have a much larger crafting grid and an extra slot here. This is where you can put your attuned crystals. So like this one being Gemini, you plop it in here, and any recipe that requires Gemini can now be made. So if you look over here, actually here, no, not areas, here we go. You can see here, there's a bit of an outline of Gemini on the table, which means you have to have that crystal attuned to that constellation in order to actually craft this. The other thing is, let's go and get rid of this, is that once you're at this point, if you saw there, you actually saw that there was some items floating around the table. This is because when you get to this level, you have to put some of these down, because when you're crafting, ghost items will sometimes appear on those special relays. And you have to place that item on there, and only then, so we can craft it. So like here, you get a ghost item of a fish, string, sugar, and a feather. Whenever those popped up, you'd have to place them on their respective relay in order for the crafting to complete, as well as, of course, having this whole thing put together. Let's move that up here. That's better. So yeah, with this also, you can actually use it to create the extra star medal or what have you. Similar to how you did it back in the original altars, you can do it up here now instead. So you don't have to keep running back and forth all the time. The other thing you can make are wand attunements. As you might have seen, when I grabbed this, there was another resonating wand. So you're going to have to make a second wand in order to do this, but once you do, like with Gemini, this one will basically fling you through the air. Oh, I was actually flying. So it's very useful to... It's basically like an infinite rocket for elytras. Or just, flinging yourself up somewhere. some of these different ones will have different effects. Like Capricornus is like a infinite shield when you hold right click. Virgo will allow you to walk on the air, though it's not always perfect, so be careful with that one. Yeah, each of these will have different specifics, and they will tell you what they do in the description of the heal. Now the other thing you might see here is irradiant stars. Going back to attunement, you can find... Is it in attunement? Yeah, it is. Shifting stars. If you're tired of your astral perks for whatever reason, you can use that, and that will completely reset your astral perks down all the way down to 0, like you never had them. But the shifting star, on the other hand, that you find here, or irradiant star, my bad, you have a specifically attuned shifting star. When used, it will actually just reset your points, but it won't reset your progress. So let's say you're at level 10, I guess. If you use the regular shifting star, all of that will be gone. But using the irradiant star, you can reset your route, your original route, to something else. So let's say I don't want Gemini anymore, and I wanted Aries. If I make the corresponding irradiant star, this would reset my points, so that way I would start at Aries instead. And I would still have all my points. Again, this is why I recommended going for Gemini, because then you can just reset it to something else instead later on. Let's see here. Is there anything else I was missing? And that basically covers the majority of Astral. I haven't gone over everything because, well, as you can see, it's still a good few things I left out, like Taming Chalice, the fountains, the observatory, and things like the stellar refraction table. I'm going to leave you guys to figure those out. But the one last thing I want to actually tell you guys is that there is one special type of constellation that happens once in a blue moon, essentially, in a Minecraft world. And that is Horologium, or with the Astral Sorcery mod installed, it's Scorpius. That constellation basically shifts time. It's one of my favorite ones because if you use it just right, you can either significantly speed up machines, or you can basically pull a time stop move, as I like to call it. Stupid snow. Where, let's see here. Here we go. So with this mantle, for instance, if I take any sort of damage, besides fire, I think. Yeah, there we go. You'll suddenly see some lightning sparks around. And this basically freezes any mobs or machines within the area. I would not recommend taking damage near high concentration machines, otherwise you're gonna lag out. It also only works every 30 seconds or so. So be aware of that if you do decide to go down that route with it. So yeah, different mantles will give different effects. And the other thing is it can even apply to more than just the mantle. Going back to the attunement, you can see that there are rituals. Put that together and you can use an attuned crystal to put an effect in an area. Do it just right, and you can actually make a time stop ritual that will stop everything within the area. It's good for defeating the Chaos Dragon for defeating things like the Chaos Dragon from Draconic Evolution. But yeah, that basically covers the majority of Astral. I'll leave everything else to you guys to figure out. Actually, I talked all about Scorpius, but I forgot to tell you how you actually find it. Every once in a while, you'll see the sky darken, not from rain, but from an eclipse. When that happens, that night, and that night only for the next, and then it won't happen for another, 60 nights, I think? I think that's what it is. I think it's every 60 nights or so. An eclipse will occur. And that night only, Horologium and or Scorpius will actually appear. And that's when you can attune them or what have you for that constellation. So be on the lookout for those if you decide to go try and find it. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe also, so that way, if and whenever I keep uploading another video, you can see it. And yeah, have fun with Astral. Catch y'all later.